Hi, everybody. I am live tonight for Feral but Sober Claws Out 6. And I have somebody really special on tonight I'm excited about. I'm sending him the link now. He actually provided me with a bio. I'm going to read for everybody. And it says James is an Ashland University graduate, earning an Associates of Arts degree, a Bachelor of Arts in Communication Studies, a Bachelor of Science in Organizational Leadership and Development, and graduated summa cum laude and top 1% of his class. He was awarded membership in the National Communication Society and the National Society of Leadership and Success. James Passion's connections, self-growth, and helping others achieve their dreams. Currently works with Recovery Connections, a nonprofit organization in Athens, Ohio, as a peer recovery supporter and dedicates his time educating the community in harm reduction tools while also being a member of Leadership Athens County, funded by the Athens Foundation. Aspiring to become deeply ingrained in the community to help increase the region's overall wellness and growth, James has a vision of launching his own nonprofit that is centered in supporting the undeserved justice impacted, and those suffering from any mental illness or substance use disorder. So I also made an intro video introducing James. And that was it. And he has still not yet accepted the link. So I'm going to shoot him a message and see what's up because he I just spoke with him and he was super excited about this episode. He actually got me a lot of viewers and publicity and people watching for this episode, so I'm super grateful to him for that. Oh, here he is, actually. I was just ready to send you a message.
Hi, great to see you.
How are you today?
I'm great. I actually just forgot to hit the join button as I'm watching on another phone the awesome intro. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It's good to see you again. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this with you tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I'm super excited about your episode. I have entitled our segment I Went Far While I Sat Still. I thought you would like that. So I thought,
that's great.
Nothing sums it up better than that for me. Like you really did. You went so far while you were sitting still. So, and this is just another instance where, jail or prison is actually a good thing for some of us. We all think negatively. Nobody ever wants to go to jail. But, for me, it was also, that's what also pulled me from the madness, when I sat down and, had some time to think. And that's when I really decided to change my ways as well. So sometimes it does wonders for us.
Absolutely.
So I read the introduction and we saw the video. So if you want to go ahead and take it away and tell your story, and then we'll take questions. And like I said, I know I have some people watching, and you've been really wonderful helping me grow followers and publicity for this episode. So at the end, we'll take questions and and we'll just go from there at the very end. If we run out of time, which I don't think we will. We did pretty well on our interview call. We talked, for a good while with no real awkward pauses or anything. So I think we'll be fine. But I always have the game we can play at the end if we if we get stuck in the mud or whatever. So go ahead,
Sure.
James.
I appreciate it. And I also wanted to offer at any point, if anyone is commenting during, me talk, because sometimes I can ramble, please feel free to stop me and be like, hey, can you touch on that real quick? Because some people might be crammed for time and would really like to get a question in. So that's totally, I want to open the floor for that too. Okay. I want to talk to you a little bit about and in kind of a way that, the AA lead, where they talk about the past and we talk about what happened and then we talk about what things are at now. And I don't want to dwell too much on the past. So I want to start off by saying I've been a knucklehead majority of my life. Okay. I am coming from extreme behaviors that led to me being an intravenous methamphetamine and heroin user. And then, if you just want to call it like a blanket under the sun, whatever I could get my hands on to get high. So, with that comes, God, just an enormous amount of extreme lifestyle. And like we're talking about, I can relate to people who have hurt others mentally and physically. I can relate to being scared while you're trying to feel like you're in control of your environment, but really not knowing how to pull yourselves from the depths from which you've just dug yourself. And we're talking about where I am literally walking the streets, don't have a place to live. While I still have a loving family back home who's willing to take me in the whole time, but I was so ashamed and so lost that I didn't know how to get back to that. So, you know, in a general sense, I want to talk to you a little bit about denial. And the I was at times I felt like I was fixed in those moments where I lied to myself and I lied to others. And I don't know if you can relate, but you sometimes can present this, I've got it all together. I can do it independently, and you tell people everything's fine. I'm doing all these good things in one hand, but then again, you're just spiraling out of control in the other hand. And so for me, I had a musical talent, so I was aspiring to do great things, and um, I was doing well within reason within school, at least in the beginning. But I'd always spiral out of control, and so I was really good at masking. And so when I went off the deep end, it was like, here's James and all the things that he's doing. Then it was like, he's gone. Where did James go? And the loved ones that were around me at the time were like, what did I do wrong? Because all of a sudden he just disappeared. And next thing you know, he's just out of his gourd doing some crazy things. And each time that I went to prison, because this past time wasn't the only time, each time that I went to prison, it literally saved my life. I was able to get some weight back on me. I was able to kind of just clear my head and just begin to process what I had just done and the people I had harmed and the things I involved myself in. It blew my mind, especially coming from a family that loved and supported. So here's this prodigy, but where did things go wrong? And so, with that denial, not only did I lie to myself, but I also lied to everybody else around me. And I'm sure that people listening at some point, whether you are dealing with mental illness or substance use disorder, or just as impacted, or none of that, I'm sure that you've dealt with compounding lies too, where you might say something and then it's untrue, but then you have to cover it, and then you have to cover that cover, and then so on as we go. And parts of my life when I would get these moments of clarity, most of the time when I went to jail, um, I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? And so I try to cram all of my, growth into the very short period of time that I had while I was, sober in prison or jail. And it was like making up for lost time. And so I would do everything I possibly could as fast as I possibly could do it. And then during those moments, I wasn't really authentic with myself. I didn't completely become comfortable with the things that I was saying, or I just, I will just touch on this little bit, or I just will touch on this little bit and feel like, oh my gosh, I feel so much better. And then I would hit the streets. And quite frankly, those behaviors resurfaced. And each time that they resurfaced, it led me down a path that was even worse than the one from before. And so each time I went to prison, which I just did my fourth prison number, and countless of days in county jail. We're talking years in county jail, from Ohio to Florida. Um, I I really found that I had a desire to do better but I never found the tools um, to guide me into making those long lasting changes. And so one of the things is I was in denial of the dangers around me. So I would think, oh, I'm sure you've heard this before. If I just do it this way, maybe if I did it this way, or those two ways didn't work and I'll do it this way this time. And each time it led me closer and closer to the grave. And so I also had denial of underlying behaviors. And when I say behaviors, I'm talking about the emotional disassociation, where we kind of cut off our feelings and we just do the act that surpasses our moral thinking. So that can be, crawling in through my parents' window to grab the change out of their little change collection, just so that way I can either get a fix or um, get some gas money to get back into the lifestyle that I was living, or physically or mentally hurting those loved ones around me. And we're not even going to talk about the denial of deflection, where it wasn't me, even at my worst, it was not my fault. And so, also denial of my capabilities, because each time that I had, gone down this path over and over and over, the more lost and the more I felt there wasn't any hope anymore. And so I just felt, downtrodden, and I began to lose any kind of purpose or sense of self. Am I really this kind of like monster that is just destined to be in this spiral, this cycle of pain and suffering? And then I deserved it because I had done all these horrible things. Denial that I was a good dad, or that I was acting as a good dad. So what I mean by that is, here I am, and people would come over when I'm out of my gourd and doing those things, and here are my children in the other room, and I gave this impression that I was a good father, but here I am doing drugs in the other room, or dealing. Heaven forbid if something hit the floor and one of the kids picked it up, I would probably never forgive myself. And so I would still mask and say, hey, I'm doing all these great things, and I'm cooking meals, and I'm doing the school stuff and all these things. And I'm paying attention to the kids, but here I am just lying and masking. I denied receiving help. So every time that I went to prison and I got back out, I had family members and community members opening their hearts and minds and their arms to me. What do you need? What can we do to help you? And what does James do? No, I got it. I appreciate you. And I didn't talk about the things that, oops, I didn't talk about the things that were at my core that made me feel less than, that made me feel all the things that basically contributed to the all those barriers slash challenges that I faced, that I couldn't get over that hump. And so at one point, I even tried to go to school at Hawking College for addiction studies, and was studying under Guy Taylor for a brief period of time. But here I am shooting heroin in the stall in between classes, as I'm trying to figure out, why can I not get a grasp on my addiction? And so I also had denial that I could ever really move forward from that, because each time that I messed up, I began to deeply believe that I would never come back. I was in denial of programs, because knowing the program language, the AA, NA, or faith based, I mean, it had become so ingrained, and it disgusted me at that point. It hadn't been working, and I thought that I was genuinely trying to work those programs, but maybe it was an activating event that would send me off the deep end. And I allowed myself to, not ground myself in the true roots of the program. But I thought that I did, and I said that I did, but I really didn't. For example, like doing a fourth in AA or NA, they say if you don't do a good enough fourth, you're going to drink a fifth or use a fifth. And there were a lot of deep-seated past traumas that I had never expressed to anybody, or that I hadn't even really allowed myself to feel. And so another big thing was the denial of God. And so I heard higher power, and my father, who just passed this last October. He was a minister, he was a preacher, and you know, I'm the preacher boy, and I I felt cringy when I heard the word God, and I tried to hear God as, good orderly direction or the higher power, or I tried to read the Bible, but it related me to a direct relation to my father, who, we had some beef growing up, and it was challenging for me to be able to make that disconnect. And so I was I was afraid. Ultimately, in a general sense, my past, I was afraid to really see or learn about the real me. I felt insecure. Now, I still have insecurities, but I didn't know how to address those insecurities. I didn't know how to be authentic. I didn't know um, how to express the things that were painful without numbing. And so we're going to talk a little bit about justification. I'm sure that people who are out there might be able to relate to justification, because losing so many years to addiction, I justified doing that, cramming everything all at once to make up for that lost time. I justified my behavior because even when I was doing nutty things, I have to do this to pay for my bills. I have to do this to pay for the gas or pay for my high or whatever it might be. But we talked before, like as much as we were able to find our fix, we're still asking our loved ones to pay for the electricity that just got shut off.
Yep.
And I'll be damned if I consider myself a good dad when I have kids and I have to ask my family, friends, or whatever, and use manipulation tactics to get my electric, water, you name it, turned back. Hey, I'm missing rent and making up more lies and justifying it. And then we go into being distorted. My distorted, cloudy thinking. I distorted all truths. I couldn't come to grips with who I was and what I had become. I couldn't sit well with my environment, and I always wanted this power and this status and this sense of belonging with those that are around me. And so I sought that from people that would give me that attention without really having to work for it. And the people that were able to do that is they were looking at the drug that I had. They weren't looking at me. They were looking at, oh, I'm going to stop by and kick it for a little bit, and act like a good friend because you have what I need too.
Mhm.
And I could relate to that. So, the distorted truth, which I'll revisit just briefly, is doing the same thing. They also call it insanity, over and over and over, and expecting different results. Or I can also consider doing it differently over and over and over, wanting the same conclusion, but it doesn't happen like that. Okay, so and then diversion and deflection. I was really good at glorifying the good things as I was masking and being nefarious in the background. The manipulation of others was, we have always been able to get our fix with absolutely pennies in our hand. We use that skill, that manipulation, to get ahead, to get our fix, to get the things that we need, and we don't really look at the person that we're dealing with. We just see the addiction and our own need. And so, for a long time in my past, I carry guilt and shame for treating the loved ones that I love the most the worst. And the codependency and the bullshit that I gave them was more than I could ever believe that I had allowed myself to reach that level. I was, and there's a few more things, and we'll finish up with the past. I do not like to talk about the extreme behaviors. I do not really like to talk about um, the pain and suffering that I caused to others, because it borders war storying, and it borders glorifying on any level, and that's not the message that I like to put out. I like to put out that it happened, and it was real, and it was painful, and people on all ends of the spectrum suffered. Okay. I was abusive to men and women, mentally and physically. I was power hungry, or, the false sense of power, because what do we have power over really? Um, I avoided conflict through anger and control. I never finished what I started. Like, I went to OU for weeks and didn't finish that. I went to Hocking College, didn't finish that. I went to Colorado Technical University, didn't finish that. And it seemed like everything that I wanted to start in my life that would get me a little bit ahead, it was self-sabotaging behavior, because I was worried about success, or had to put in some work that made me feel a little uncomfortable. And it was just easier to go back to the use and, in truth, what is the harder lifestyle, to get that fix. So I was not in control of my emotions and anger. I was always spiraling, and I had the F it attitude, the, well, we've already done this, so there's no boundaries now. We're just going to go off the deep end. And there was no like gentle slope of decline for me. It was, I'm jumping off of Niagara and without any kind of protection, and we're just flying. And whoever I hit or use on the way down is, I really don't care. So I talked a little bit about the shame and the guilt. Another thing I did was I isolated. I had no problem using by myself. Matter of fact, I preferred it, because that way nobody could see to the depths from which I had reached. We talked about the lies compounding. And another big thing in the past was how I sexualized women, and how I looked at them as objects for gratification rather than, people. So all of that, time and time again, I will get sober within the structure of the system, and then try for a brief moment, but then fail. And I don't really like to use the word failure. I really now like to use, I learned more about myself each time along the way. So what happened, right? So we talked a little bit and just touched on the past. What happened? What happened to me to make this last step? Well, I went to prison again, and this was July 1st of 2020. I was sentenced to 5 to 7.5 years under the Reagan-Tokes law. And I'm like, wow, so 5 to 7.5. If I mess up, I'm going to do an extra 2.5 years. That was pretty scary. But it was at that point, sitting in the county jail, that I realized I I am deeper than I ever have been. I was closer to running away, losing my life. My addiction had been nurtured to such a degree that, um, I was gonna die. I was headed straight to the grave. And for those of you who ever had to detox in an uncomfortable or even comfortable place, um, this was a wake up call that I had never felt before. Um, and so I lucked out. I was sentenced to only 5 to 7.5 years this time. It could have been well more than that. As many times as I'd been to prison before, they could have thrown away the key, and still, unbelievably, my family had my back. They still had hope that, I could come out the other end. And I hadn't even put any work in. I had just worked to go to jail. And so I get to prison and I go to Mansfield. And for those of you who have ever seen Shawshank Redemption, that was the location, but not the exact setting. I was in the camp, so I wasn't in the big castle, but I could see it out my window. And that's where it was peak COVID time, and so there were like no programs, and it's just dead time. That sitting still, that was pretty wild. And right after I got there, I had um I had an opportunity to walk over to the Ashland building, which was just like a small little tin barn, and see the site director of Ashland, who was kind of like the liaison between Ashland University and the institution. And they were on the way out the door. They were going to a different location. And I said, look, this is what it is. This is who I am. And I just laid it on, and I became truly like seriously vulnerable, and I broke down. I said, I need something to change my life, and I need something to be able to grasp onto to give me hope. And to my surprise, I got a pass a short time later, before anybody else did, that I was to fill out my FAFSA with the news site director. And if that wasn't some kind of like divine intervention, I don't know. That was the first moment of the beginning of my life being saved again. And so, waiting for Ashland to start, um, COVID was beginning to open up, and there was still no programs. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. I need to do something. And so, in prior prison experience, I had been facilitating this program called Tapuku, which stands for The Only Person You Cheat Is You. And Tapuku, and other prison numbers, and I had plenty of experience, is ultimately about setting SMART goals, the specific, measurable, achievable, relatable, and time bound. Um, and it also was about burning the bridge to old habits. It's about habit changing and through a step by step process. And it wasn't AA or faith based. So I'm like, hey, maybe since I got a little experience, maybe I can get the acceptance to run this program. And so I did. I started facilitating Tapuku, and the response was actually, because there was no programming, the response was so high. I had to run multiple groups in either a day and multiple groups in a week. And so as that started to build speed, the staff members were like, hey, who's this dude? The inmate population was like, hey, who's this dude? Thinking he's going to be getting these extra props and stuff from the staff. So like I was in this weird we they dichotomy between the institution and the inmates, or excuse me, the incarcerated population. But I didn't care because I started to feel good again. I started to see guys, that light coming on in their eyes and their thinking and their stories that they were sharing about. Well, I have challenges with this, or they started to like open up to me, and I started to, that was intoxicating. And so what did I do next is I ran a basic group about mental health 101, I think I called it. It was we just touched on some of the signs and symptoms of depression, anxiety. And of course, I'm not a clinical person, so I'm just doing some basic research that my case manager, David Kobe, shout out to him, would print out for me, and would co-sign everything for me. He believed in me. A staff member here at the Mansfield Institution is like, hey, do your thing, James. And so I did. I took advantage of it. And so I did an anger management one called Cage Your Rage. I did a deep breathing one called Calming the Mind. I did RAP, the Wellness Recovery Action Plan. I did I did this one called Because I Said I Would, which was holding true to the promises that you keep and give to others. Keep that you give to yourself and to others. Why are you doing it? Because I said I would do it. And that ties into my past because I can relate to it because I never finished anything that I started besides going to jail. And then I developed one called Life of a Hustler. And this Life of a Hustler program, well, in a nutshell, we live on those who have lived on the streets and only know the streets, or know the streets and a pro-social lifestyle. We have learned things along the way that can be employable job skills. And so like one thing is you might be able to manage money in your addiction or your hustling life. You show up, because if you don't show up, you're not going to get paid. You definitely got some networking skills out there because you got to meet a bunch of different people. You have to have some communication skills. You got to have some problem solving, because if my car died, your car died, how the hell are we going to go over and get our thing that we need to have? How are we going to get to this person, to this person, to this person, and get the thing done? You got to work that stuff out. And so we could even say grant writing, because then you get people to donate their time and money to you, so that way you can continue doing what you want to do, right?
This is
And
all like the
so,
trait mate based model type stuff, which I thought was super cool. I just learned about that the other day in peer support
yes,
class, and I was super like, it made so much sense. Like so much clicked for me when I heard that. I was like, yes.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought up the peer support because that's the next part of this discussion. And so the trait based or strengths based or whatever you may call it, I didn't know those things back then. I just said life of a hustler. I learned some stuff out there, you know. And some of these guys were like in this setting, they're like, well, I only know the streets and I'm going to go back to the streets. And I was like, well, you might know the streets, but you can be employed because of the skills that you learned from the streets. And that boom. And so then we started doing mock interviews and we got the staff involved in it. And it was like, oh my God. Oh yeah. And not to mention the Tapuku, the founder of Tapuku, my case manager and I, Norm Mulder, we invited him in and he's been like my idol. But the founder came in and we did this like massive graduation for the guys. That because I said I would, that was developed and launched by Alex Sheen. You can check it out because I said I would.org. He came in and gave a motivational speech for us. So like things were happening at like an alarming rate within the institution, just in the little campsite, you know? And so then what's next? You know, I was approached by mental health and because I was doing counseling and they had heard that I was doing all these things. I've been doing all these things for a couple of years. And they said, well, have you heard of peer support? I'm like, oh no, I don't know, but let's do it. Let's go for it. I have no idea what it is, but let's do it because it's going to be another tool in my tool belt. And so they paid for it and they organized me to be able to take the 16-hour e-based academy. We did the 40 hours of virtual training. Stanley Gilbert, love you guys. My virtual trainers, the master facilitators for peer support, and they challenged me. They challenged my thinking in a new way. That was the first time I had ever heard, ever in any kind of recovery space, that once an addict, if you believe that you are not always going to have to be an addict, you don't have to be. It is your choice to believe that. And for me, just for me to not be under that blanket, that umbrella of addiction, that I can transcend past that, it was boom. I can't even put it into words how liberating that thought was. And so I dove even deeper. Now, mind you, during all this, I'm still going to school and I'm learning. I'm getting my associates through Ashland University. And the more that I learn, the more that I want to learn. And so now I'm doing the peer support stuff and I'm pioneering this program. They're like, oh, you got the training now. Now you can just launch the program. And okay, how am I going to manage this within the institution when I got the staff members like, oh, you inmate slug, and I got the incarcerated population like, who is this dude? Like, who does he think he is? But it was beginning to come together. And the more that I push forward with true intent of helping others, the it just it came about naturally. And so peer support, you don't always have to be okay. Yeah, had to reset there for a second. Pioneer the program, it was awesome. And being at this end of the table as opposed to on the other end, hearing those real stories coming from the guys, like guys were coming in active use, glassy eyed, just desperate within the walls, within that setting, wanting to find a way to let that stuff go. And I can't say that everything that I said truly helped, but at least I was able to. I learned so much from these guys about my own space. And so I started a peer support discussion group, and that was really cool too. I kind of incorporated some leadership and some connection, and we took some guys from different ends of the earth and we became like besties through being able to relate to one another and through team building exercises. And at this point, the staff is like, wow, this guy's like kind of doing the thing. People are actually getting out because having programs they can put on their ORAS, which is kind of like your digital portfolio that goes in front of the judge. And here I am doing dead time. I mean, like day for day. And they're like, why are you doing this? Because I'm learning so much and it feels so good. And I begin to think that there's a little bit of hope. And then I learned that peer support's like a thing on the streets. And I'm like, oh, you mean I can take this out there and do this? I mean, I can actually do something that I enjoy. And I'm already quote unquote not certified yet because I couldn't take the test yet, but I'm gaining that experience. So I also had a heavy hand in organizing family events, which is really cool too because I didn't realize the response that I would get from the guys who would bring their family members up to me and be like, "Hey, this is so and so," and they felt comfortable to share their loved ones with me. Which what that did for me was it allowed me to begin believing that I was a good human being and that I was worthy of having that connection with people and that I can change. And that was so powerful to be able to serve people at those events and um, then touch base with them afterwards and hear the pain that they're feeling because they're not with their loved ones. Their loved ones had to go. And so another big thing was turning counseling into real work. So I went from counseling all my life. Oh my God. I hated counseling because I always had to go and be like, oh yeah, I got to act like this when I go in there, and I got to tell them what they want to hear, and then I'm cool for that after that hour, and I can go back to doing what I want to do. But I went from expecting a fix to putting the work myself. And what that means is I would go in to a counseling session and I talk for 99% of the time, setting my own goals, talking about my own issues and the feelings that I was feeling. And the counselor would just be like, okay. And I would be like, I really don't need you to say anything. I just need you to like be here so I can like trauma dump on you and let you know what's
Sign
going
off.
on in my
Yeah.
head. Yeah. And that was really cool too, because then I slowly started to make that shift of it's me doing the work. You're not going to tell me a damn thing I don't already know. I already know all the things. I know I need to stop using. I know I need to be kind. I know that I should change my all the things, and I know the grounding tools and all that stuff. But where's the application of it? Okay, so that was big too. Counseling. Now, so we're doing the peer support. We're doing the counseling. We're doing the programs, but there was a point in the Ashland University to revisit that where I had earned the associates and we did a small little graduation and I had a degree. A degree. I think 40 or 39 years old and in prison applied myself to get an associate's. Holy cow. And then my site director came up to me and said, "Hey, you got enough time to get a bachelor's." I'm like, "Get out of here. No way. What can we do?" And she said, "Well, you can get a bachelor in communication." Oh my God, lining up again. And so the reason why I wanted to put in the bio that I was in the top 1% of Ashland University, including campus, is because I put in that work. And I hope that somebody who is watching that knows me from that time, because I would put in 10-hour days of studying. I went to my site director and asked for countless, I'm talking like novels, volumes of information to change my language, to change my thinking, because my beliefs were messed up. My worldview only continued to lead me back to the places that I didn't want to be. And I needed to change that. I needed to figure it out. And so I did, and I learning how to communicate to people in an appropriate way also helped me to view the person and see the person and understand where they're coming from in a whole new level that even peer support didn't bring. Not that even just talking to someone in a peer support setting didn't bring, or as a facilitator didn't bring. It was all about the transaction of communication and being able to respect somebody's space and actively listen. I wrote down in my notes, listening to listen and not listening to respond. Huge, because you basically shut up and you hear them and you empathize with them, and it's not about you. You take the I out of it. And so that was really, really cool too. So doing the bachelor's. Well, that wasn't enough for me. So I started doing IOP, intensive outpatient. So among the hours that I was putting into Ashland University, literally from cover to cover, the textbooks, and it was so much. Um, the work and growth that I was, the work that I was putting in, and the growth that I was feeling was next level. And the fear of the perceptions of those around me, I didn't care. I had changed my thinking to I was actually, yeah, sure, I was in prison, but I really wasn't in prison. I was just in school far away. And I couldn't go home on the weekends or holidays. And I used that for years. Well, a couple of years. So that way I wouldn't think beyond where I was at. And I would take advantage of every last moment. And so IOP opened my eyes. Oh my gosh, Mr. Botdorf, love that man. We that's where I really began to disassociate the addiction because that wasn't the problem. The problem was the behaviors. The behaviors led to the addictive things that I did or the drugs I used. And prior to the behaviors, what made me behave that way is my fears. The fears that I had status problems, like the fear of failure, the fear of disapproval, the fear of feeling insignificant, people's opinion, success, or anonymity, my identity. And so that alone, okay, if I'm feeling my worldview's messed up because I feel that I have a fear of failure, then I need to change that so I don't feel the fear of failure to the degree that it nurtures and gestates into a behavior, which then leads into addiction. So I brought it to my core. I began to really, in a new way, look at my worldview. And the worldview is my beliefs, how I act. Now, a really important point that I didn't bring up yet is the phrase that I meditated on every single day, which was harm no one. So that we'll just stamp that in the very center of me. And the things that I say and the things that I do, how I interact, communicate, including secondary interactions, because if you say something, somebody else could hear it, harm no one. And so during this group, this 5 days a week for 6 months, for several hours during the day, on top of my school, on top of all the other things compounded, um, the very first rule that I based all of my core principles on was are my thoughts based on reality and fact. So the things that I do, am I muddled in my thinking? Am I perceiving things a little wrong? And sometimes, quite often, actually, especially in the beginning, I had things twisted. And so that means I got to have an accountability partner or partners. And so I started to bounce my thinking off of other people. Am I out of my gourd? Am I actually thinking this through the right way? So are my thoughts based on reality and facts? That's number one. Are my thoughts helping me protect my life and hi?
Say hi.
Hi. And the rule two is, are my thoughts helping me protect my life and health? Rule three, are my thoughts helping me achieve my short, midterm, long-term goals and my big, hairy, audacious goals, you know? The other two are my thoughts helping me keep out of conflict with others? And then number five, are they leading me to live a life that I want to live without the use of alcohol and drugs? And I learned that if I had three of these rules, with number one being, are my thoughts based on reality and facts, then I can base my decisions upon those rules. And I have such a better chance at making quality and sound choices in my life. So then I started looking at my consequences of my actions, the physical and emotional responses from the things that I did. Now, I'm not just talking about, oh, well, I had an activating event here. Everything that I did, I looked at myself and how I felt about it. And I talked about it in counseling. I talked about it in my journaling. And I talked about it with my family because I was raw. I didn't know what the next step was. I didn't know what was right and what was wrong. I addressed my control fears, my fears of not being in control and powerlessness and inadequacy and the weakness I felt and the issues I felt with rejection and vulnerability. I discussed my affiliation fears, such as my intimacy and my honesty and my dating, my social relationships, the closeness I feel with others, and my contentment and my peace. And so as I know I'm raw and I'm changing all these things, then my site director comes to me and says, "Hey, you're about to graduate with your bachelor's. Do you want to get another degree while you're here? You have just enough time." There's the alignment again. And I said, "Sure, let's do it. Might as well rebuild 100% while we can." And so in the end of the Ashland experience, I earned the Bachelor in Science, the Organizational Leadership and Development, which, even in my knucklehead nefarious days, I was a leader. We talked about those traits and those strengths, leadership, communication. It all fell in line. And I addressed my behaviors. I took a look at the roles and responsibilities and the relations that I had, and the responsibilities I maintained in those relationships, whether I was acting dominant or submissive, and trying to find the balance in that. I was trying to determine what actions or what consequences that led to me being a leader or rebellious in nature, or the things that happened in my environment that led me to be a follower or just completely disabled again. And I really just began shaping my new frame of thinking. And so, okay, so we talked about the consequences. We talked about the rules and the IOP, and then I get a notification from one of the staff members that Michael Singletary, Hall of Famer from the Chicago Bears, had heard about me and a couple other guys and wanted to do an interview. So their PR team came and interviewed me on an outreach, kind of doing an outreach. It might have been like a thing for him, but I got to give my story to other incarcerated persons, which was way cool too. So I was being recognized. I took a look at my role and everything that I did. I owned the things that I'd done to others, what I can remember. Now I want to touch on something real quick, and I know we're getting close to the time. Is bipolar blackouts. If you ever have a period of time in your life that you can't remember when you're in extreme behaviors, that happened to me. So for me, it would happen for months at a time, 9 months at a time, where my brain would shut down and I would be a complete body response as in survival mode. And so I read the book, The Body Keeps the Score. Amazing book. And it allowed me to understand why I have physical responses to things that I couldn't remember. But in hearing about the things that I did, I owned it. Okay, so I know I've been going, but I want to touch on what it's like now for me. Okay, so I get the degrees and I do the peer support stuff and I do the programming and I do the IOP, and now I'm living in this new enlightened sense in prison, like I wasn't even in prison. I'm building the relationships like I've never felt before. My sister and I finally have like this amazing adult relationship now. I can love people in a new way, whether I've seen you before or whether I'm about to or actually have or not. It doesn't matter. I love you because I can relate to your life experiences, because once again, let me revisit. I'm an intravenous, or was an intravenous heroin and meth user and everything else under the sun. And so I know what it means to be anxious, depressed, have trauma issues. I'm a sexual assault survivor, and I finally came to grips with forgiving my oppressor. Okay. And that in itself, true forgiveness and wanting that person to also find a place of healing, has been nothing but liberating. I can see people in a new way. And what does that mean? It means being able to relate to them, like I was talking about. I can see that you are feeling pain, and I feel the pain for you because I felt those feelings before too. I can understand all of those feelings, but it's in a new light now. It's instead of like, oh, I'm so sorry that you're feeling that way, it's what can I do to help? And so now I've gotten involved with a local nonprofit called Recovery Connections. I've been doing table talking events. discussing how to administer Narcan and decreasing the stigmas attached to mental illness and substance use disorder. I learned to accept help from others graciously. I give time and I give compliments and I show love. I smile and I'm not perfect. I still have relationship problems. I still have codependency problems. But you know what? One thing that I've learned is those people that are scared to open up, scared when they say, "Oh, I don't want to open up because they're going to use that against me." You know what? Say something about me that I haven't already said about
Yeah.
myself. And if you do say something new, okay, you're right. I did it. What can I do? How can I move forward with this? And it's not shame and guilt anymore. It is repurposed. It has been repurposed into something new than that drives me. And so the work that I do now, um, including the leadership Athens County. I was so humbled to be nominated to be in this group where community being elevated as a nefarious knucklehead. 30 days when I was nominated out of prison, and they're like, "Yeah, we're going to elevate this dude." Oh my gosh, how humbling is that? And why? Because keeping that positive mind frame and that hope alive in your heart and being able to not just not let that die. It's transformative. So when you open up to people and you deal with that vulnerability and that pain, you're you're healing. And it's not about what other people can throw back in your face, because if you practice and you learn to take that vulnerability and fuel it into growth, that's where for me true transformation has been able to happen. So life's great. I'm a 110, 12, 20 days out of prison or whatever, 3.5 months. And I've been living in new headspace for several years now. Even in the stages as I've been growing, it's like the light bulb, the light bulb, the light bulb. And it's been so good. People are still opening their arms up to me. People are still offering such good sound advice and love and compassion. And I'm already like, what, 50 something minutes in, and I could keep on talking, but I do want to leave a little bit of room for if there's any questions that have popped up. If you have any questions you wanted me to elaborate on, I'm so thankful for the opportunity to be able to share this with you. I do want to offer up that I am a peer supporter, officially certified now, which has been awesome. And I'm so glad that you're going through that too. You can find my information pinned in either, I think you shared it on your stuff, Facebook page, but reach out to you and to get that information. I'm here to help. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Um,
I did just share James's little picture of his business card into our Feral But Sober Facebook group. His name is James Barr, guys. Look him up on Facebook. We are friends. Anybody that's friends with me can find him that way. I've only had a few conversations with him, but he truly is amazing. Just every time he makes me smile. Like I said, I entitled the segment "I Went Far While Sitting Still" because that's just what I think about. So many people go into prison and just waste their time, or they use that as a reason why they got, I went to prison. I've been in prison all my life. Been in prison the last 5 years. I can't do nothing. Can't blah blah blah. But just you didn't do that. You didn't take it. You didn't let it get you down. You really made something of your life. And especially considering like how you said you had started school several times before and like didn't
yeah,
complete and dropped out. It's like God knew, man, and he knows what we need and said, okay, you're not gonna do it on your own. I got something for you. And he made sure you had the time to do it. And that just goes to show how God really does work in our life, even when, we may not realize it. If anybody is watching and has any questions or comments for James, now's the time. I hate to cut the episode show short, but my class is at 7 tonight. I sometimes take them at 10 this morning, and my kids have been sick, and I didn't take it this morning. So I'm kind of jumping right from one to the other today. So I wanted to
good for
declare
you.
yeah, I'm trying to get them in order. I'm doing it from the Best KY, and they are amazing because they let you pretty much, you can pick like your schedule. They do 3 or 4 classes a day. They also have weekend classes and stuff, and you can kind of just do it whenever. And you don't have to take, like, sometimes I take the 10 o'clock class, sometimes the 1 o'clock class, sometimes the 7 p.m. class, like just whatever I can catch that day. Like I'm just getting it in. So, but I didn't want to
Good
clarify
for
when James
you.
talked about doing for anybody watching, he was not talking about like probation. Like he did the program inside the prison. Where what did you say? You told me about it somewhere. Like, oh, hold on.
Are you talking about the programs that I did in prison?
No, just like the IOP, how rigorous it was that you did.
Oh, yeah, the IOP. So it was 6 months long. I volunteered myself to go into it because it was another tool to be able to learn about myself even more. I didn't know what I was getting into. And if I went into it saying, okay, I'm going to be in a group where guys are, mixed intentions, where some are just getting some good days and some are like, I don't really care about this group, whatever. But it was an opportunity for me to take a look at who I am and why I started to behave that the over those years, where my behaviors came from, and be able to change that and challenge that worldview that kept on leading me back to those places. So yeah, I wasn't, it wasn't like probation or anything like that. It was a program within the institution that I was like, hey, I need to do that. And so I did. And it was just another thing that would change. And I, to not to be dismissive, it changed my life. It changed my life in such a huge way, being able to um, take a look at those deep seated beliefs and address some of those things that I hadn't been truthful with myself the entirety of my growing up. And from there, I found myself and I realized that I can be the authentic me with this new shaped self. And who gives a shit what anybody thinks? Because if
That's
I
right.
speak my truths, if I speak my truths always, and I'm authentic and genuine, that's all that really matters. And if I want to be a good
That's
human
right.
being, that's what I'm going to be. And so, yeah, the IOP was 6 months long. It was towards the end of my experience being incarcerated, or being at school abroad, whatever you may call it. And yeah, it was transformative. Oh my goodness, it was amazing.
So
Thank you for
I
asking.
have
Yeah,
2 questions real quick we're gonna wrap up with. One is something
yeah,
I like to always ask everybody, if you could set
yeah.
beside yourself in your darkest time right now, going back, what would you say to yourself? One piece of advice.
Ooh, ooh, that was a good one. So don't give up.
Yep.
You're worthy. You are worthy of love, and you are worthy of change. You can do it. It's going to take a little bit of work, but the amount of support out there when you're ready it'll blow your mind. It'll blow your mind.
And the second question I wanted to finish up with is, what's next for James? So what are your future goals now with all of the education that you got? I know you haven't been home very long. You are already
Yeah,
working and stuff, but
yeah,
do you have any big plans? You talked about wanting to open a nonprofit. I know we don't have a whole lot of time,
yeah.
but I wanted to go ahead and hear a little bit about what your future plans are.
To get through the day. That's number one. Every
Absolutely.
day. And I don't mean it like to be super funny, but it sounds funny. But every day, embrace it as something new and as a new opportunity, and to keep that framing and of thinking. Connect with people. To every single person, whether I go through the line at Walmart and talk to a cashier, Family Dollar, Dollar General, wherever it might be, any person that I come in contact with, I show them love and compassion and empathy, and I appreciate the experiences and their story. So yeah, the nonprofit, that's my big hairy audacious goal. I'd like to be, it's my kind of my legacy goal, is be able to, I have this concept that connects community to the underserved. The So in a sense, you have like this hub where, job and family services, integrated services, HRS, you can go to, you can get your counseling, your financial, your housing, all those things. But this concept allows the community to be more involved. So not only does it give purpose and hope in the justice impacted mental illness and substance use disorder, or people who just want to build goals in their lives, but it also reduces that stigma. It reduces the negative impression that community members might have. So you're helping reduce overdose, and you're helping the underserved, and you're also helping the community by getting involved and supporting those the people who need it.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you for
Absolutely, James.
asking.
Yeah, absolutely, and I hope all of your dreams come true. Thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
joining us tonight. I wish we had more time. I had, just a question and nothing, a lot of stuff you already touched on, but you did so many amazing things. I wanted to have you elaborate on some stuff.
Thank
Maybe we'll get you
you.
on a different episode and we can talk
Would
some
love
more
to.
about your journey. But my class is starting now. They're talking in the other
Yeah,
ear, so
do your
I'm gonna
thing.
jump off.
Okay. Thank you
Bye.
so
Have a great
much.
night.
Bye. You too.
Run it, ooh, I really feel it's my time, think it's my year, yeah, I really run it, ooh, I really feel it's my time, think it's my year, yeah, I really feel it's my time, think it's my year, yeah, I really feel it's my time, think it's my year, yeah, I really feel it's my time, think it's my been ready, used to hold myself back, my self-esteem damn bad, I gotta keep